Presentation of findings and recommendations from systematic review comparison, presented by Abdul Nasir Yusif. Outline of this presentation will include abstract and introduction, definition of key terms, review of the article Demenis, Callahan 2011, review of the article Van de Voort, Pauvi, Van Volhen 2012. Discussion will include criteria used for comparing the two articles, the 7 critical factors of good research practice, followed by conclusion and reference page. The abstract. Hello, fellow board members of Locus Innovation. Thank you for the opportunity to present this discussion on the topic of continuous decline in staff retention. As exit interview indicates, the lack of balance in work life among our employees is blamed for the turnover. Given the expected economic and performance consequences associated with turnover, according to Brown, Guarino, and Martin 2009, conducting a systematic review of empirical studies that investigate the connection between retention and work-life balance is necessary in aiding managerial corrective action. Management is more concerned with economic cost associated with dysfunctional and as opposed to functional turnover, which include cost incurred from separation, replacement, training, and cost of reduced productivity by the new employee, according to Tisizna Birati 1996, as well as organizational competitiveness by Brown, Guarino, and Martino 2009. In other words, flexible working arrangements is described as working arrangements in which employees are allowed to vary the amount, timing, or location of their work, according to D. Menes et al., page 453. Furthermore, this arrangement involves employees working remotely and away from the workplace or teleworking, working outside the normal working hours such as flex time and compressed working time, as well as reduce in the number of normal working hours, page 453. Evidence from various reviews indicates that this trend is not unique to Locus Innovations. As a result, this review aims to find studies from the literature linking work-life balance, or what Demenis and Callahan 2001 describe as flexible working arrangements, in short FWA, with employee retention. Hence, the purpose of this review is to compare findings from the two articles so that recommendations can be made to management for policy formulation in the area of workplace flexibility pertaining to work-life balance. Introduction of discussion. Systematic review is the process of screening and organizing research articles in a methodical manner in response to a specific research question, according to Barnett, Page, and Thomas 2009. Systematic review also means comprehensive accumulation, transparent analysis, and reflective interpretation of all empirical studies pertinent to specific question, according to Rosal et al., page 479. Through the employment of systematic research synthesis, findings become clearer as gaps and limitations are recognized. In the words of Rosal et al., 2008, synthesis separates replicable findings from noise. An important part of the review process ensures exhaustive compliance to the scientific method by incorporating transparency, relevance, and rigor. The role of transparency, relevance, and rigor, that is the reference from course material that were given. Given the existence of wide range of methods in use by management scholars and practitioners in the review process, some level of flexibility exists in adopting specific methodology that will fit a particular review purpose. And among various methodological approaches are the meta-ethnography, grounded theory, framework synthesis, thematic synthesis, textual narrative synthesis, meta study, and realist synthesis. This review would actually comply with the textual narrative synthesis. Choice of methodological approach depends on the specific research question and the epistemological viewpoint of the researcher conducting the systematic review. Barnett et al. Barnett et al. And the article synthesis resource that were given in the class. The product of a comprehensive systematic review is significant for management practitioners, scholars, public officials, and doctoral students for advancing knowledge in their respective fields, according to Rosal 2008. Multiple steps are involved in conducting systematic reviews, including a comprehensive search of all evidence related to a specific research question, appraisal of the method used in each study, summary of results, presentation of research findings, identification of reasons for differing results across studies, and a transparent discussion of limitations of current knowledge. The two articles to be used in this review are the Kelliner 2001 and Van de Voort, Pauw, and Van Velhoven 2012. The framework for this review will comply with weight of evidence guidelines outlined by Go 2007, Petru 2003, Rosal et al. 2008, Rosean 2012, and Taylor and Height 2014. The criteria for this review include introduction, epistemology, statement of the study's purpose, research question, and theoretical or conceptual framework. Under method, areas such as rationale for using systematic review, search strategy and execution, inclusion and exclusion of criteria, synthesis, rigor, and transparency. The outline of this presentation will begin with the definition of key terms used in this review, to be followed by Table 1 serving as a benchmark for this discussion. Additionally, textual narrative of both articles will be provided based on the 7 criteria mentioned earlier. A summary of the analysis of articles will focus on comparing the two systematic reviews with final comments and recommendations in the conclusion. Finally, a list of references is provided in accordance with APA formatting. The key terms defined. Systematic review means comprehensive accumulation of transparent analysis and reflective interpretation of all empirical studies pertinent to a specific question. Rosal et al. 2008, page 479. Synthesis separates replicable findings from noise. Rosal again, 2008, page 479. Aggregative reviews are those that collect empirical data from individual studies to describe and test predefined concepts. Go et al. 2012. Purpose statement is a statement that establishes the intent of the entire research study, and it needs to be clear, specific, and informative. It indicates why you want to do the study and what you intend to accomplish. Criswell, 2014, page 123. The introduction provides a background information for the research reported in the paper. Its purpose is to establish a framework for the research so that readers can understand how it is related to other research. Criswell, again, page 214, page 107. Epistemology, according to Criswell 2014, is a process of obtaining knowledge through learning and conducting research in order to address an issue at hand. A source of contention regarding what constitutes acceptable knowledge is largely influenced by cultural background of the researcher and existing environmental factors within which a research was conducted. Saunders and Lewis, 2009, emphasizes the significance of reality. Ontology is therefore simply the philosophy of understanding the characteristics of reality that lays the foundation for an inquiry into a research question. Saunders et al. 2009. Meta-analysis refers to the combination of results in one new product. Theoretically, it can refer to all types of review, but in practice, the term has become associated with statistical meta-analysis of quantitative data. Go page 4. External validity or generalizability refers to the extent to which a result holds across population settings, setting procedures, and times. Again, Rousseau, page 482. According to Rousseau et al., page 483, generalizability is particularly threatened when only findings from published studies are considered. A purpose of traditional literature review is to identify whether findings are stable across researcher methods, measures, and times. This table is a benchmark for review comparison, and here a summary is given with regards to detailed analysis of the criteria used for comparing the two articles. And the most important point to note here is the theoretical construct, which we found to be weak for Article 1, and then for Article 2, the statement of study's purpose as well as the research question appear to be weak. Under search strategy and execution for Article 2 is also weak. We begin with the systematic review of the article by Menezes Kelleher 2011, which is entitled Flexible Working and Performance, a systematic review of the evidence for a business case. The introduction clearly provided relevant background information pertaining to the overall objective and summary of findings about the article. Given the lack of clear focus on the research agenda, for which the definition of how to measure employee well-being from the vantage of organizational performance appear to be lost in the maze, multiple definitions led to inconclusive findings. Serving as a roadmap for readers, the outline, which appeared at the end of the introduction, gave readers what to expect from the rest of the article. In short, the introduction, which bears all the hallmarks of short description of the article, was precise and comprehensive, according to Criswell 2014. The statement of purpose was intended to assess the extent to which a real business case of FWAs that are designed to accommodate employees' preferences exist. According to the article on page 453, this statement was mentioned repeatedly throughout the review in order to reinforce the author's main objective. Having recognized the economic challenges faced by businesses in their efforts to create or ensure a work-life balance, the authors reaffirmed their aim to identify trends in the literature and to explain the evidence found. On page 453, aligning the aim of this review with the current work-life balance situation faced by Locus Innovations, the article's purpose fits the objective of this very project. Epistemologically, based on the author's research agenda that is focused on broader perspective of flexible working arrangements, the authors are clearly influenced by constructivist worldview. Reference: Criswell 2014, page 8. As a result, the author's lack of focus on a single research agenda is clearly reflected in their inconclusive findings. Research question The review question was stated as, what is the relationship between flexible working arrangements and performance or related outcomes? Page 453. Flexible working arrangements are often linked to an organization's ability to recruit the required quantity and quality of staff by widening the recruitment pool. Such reports are found in both the gray, see for example the Coalition for Quality Flexible Work, the American Psychological Association, and academic Foster Thompson and Aspinwall 2009, and all the references that were provided under this article. Although the evidence tends to rely on subjective rather than objective measurement, several studies reported that managers believe that offering FWAs had a positive impact on employee retention, but many examined combined FWAs rather than individual arrangements. Flexible working arrangements were defined as working arrangements which allow employees to vary the amount, timing, or location of their work. Specifically, the authors included arrangements that involve employees working remotely from the workplace, often termed as teleworking, or at times which differ from the standard hours for the workplace, in other words, flex time and compressed working time, and where employees have chosen to reduce the amount of time they are contracted to work. Again, page 453. The theoretical framework. The flexible working arrangements were defined as working arrangements which allow employees to vary the amount, timing, or location of their work. However, relying on this definition and the review question, a number of key elements refined to build a foundation for database searches. This conceptual framework is weak because it led to the exclusion of half of the number of search results. Methodologically, the rationale for using the systematic review was that although employer-driven flexible working practices were not the focus of this review, it is reasonable to assume that they are introduced for business reasons. Again, page 467. The search strategy employed in this very review, that is, given the diversity of terminologies used by researchers in describing FWA in literature, the authors decided for the sake of uniformity to use search terms including remote working, schedule flexibility, compressed working time, and reduced hours. See page 455. Another reason for their usage of these terms was to comply with fit for purpose, such that research purpose and question align with search terms, according to Rosal 2008. Relying on these terms, the authors developed 900 search strings conforming to flexible working arrangements, work-related outcomes, and employee outcomes. Refer to Table 1, page 454. That is, in order to extract credible literature databases used included EBSCO, ProQuest, and PsychoInfo. Timeline for conducting the search was June and July 2008. That is, in an effort to collect as much research data on the subject, Google search was also used to access great sources such as reports published by commercial and government organizations and ISI Web of Knowledge. See page 454. Studies dealing with flexibility for employees were included rather than flexibility with employees to satisfy demand and supply of labor that only benefits employers. That is, cross-referencing between these two types of searches, as we can see, yielded other articles which were considered for inclusion in the review. That is, overall, 256 studies were included as part of the original sample. However, following a careful review of the titles and abstracts, the final number of literature used in the review dropped to 148. The rationale for inclusion or exclusion of studies was purposely to achieve fit for purpose in terms of the research question, theoretical and methodological rigor and relevance. See page 455. And given the lack of credibility surrounding the use of references from Grey literature, the author's use in this review severely hampers the study's conclusions. Additionally, it is unclear how many studies were referenced from Grey sources that were part of the 148 studies included in the review. Clarifying this point will enhance the rigor and relevance of the paper. In terms of synthesis, the breakdown of the 148 studies were analyzed as 112 were empirically based, 17 were theoretical, 11 were literature reviews, and 7 were meta-analysis, and 1 was an annotated bibliography. The process of data collection and synthesis were based on the review question and measurement criteria, as well as research strategy found in Table 1. There was no explanation for specifying the inclusion of articles published post-2008 except to state that they add new perspectives or assist in the evaluation of the findings and in the development of the research agenda. See page 455. That is, in terms of coverage, the 29 studies covered work-family balance. Of these, 66% showed no associating at all, and 10% show a negative association. See Table 3 on page 457. That is, in terms of external validity, the sample of studies extends across UK, France, Germany, and USA. However, it is not clear what the percentages are in terms of the number of studies in each country. Now we continue with a systematic review of Van de Voort, Pav, and Van Hoven, 2012. The introduction contained all the elements of a good introduction described by Criswell under page 107. Having provided a clear background of the study, the authors set the stage for the reader by providing a summary of how the review was undertaken. A brief description of findings and outline was provided. Epistemologically, based on their research agenda that is focused on broader definition of employee well-being in relation to HRM and organizational performance, the authors are clearly influenced by constructivist worldview. See Criswell, page 9. As a result, their lack of focus on a single concept is clearly reflected in their inconclusive findings. The statement of study's purpose seemed to defy what Criswell 2014 described as being clear, specific, and informative. See page 123. Thus, the purpose was broken down in two parts. The first purpose was to investigate which of the competing perspectives, mutual gains, or conflicting outcomes provides a better description of the role of employee well-being. Secondly, to examine whether 5 study attributes recognized as relevant in earlier reviews which affect a study's outcomes. To accomplish this, the authors seek to distinguish between well-being types, namely happiness, relationship, and health, the effects of single HR practices versus indices of combined HR practices, meaning the HR systems, financial versus operational performance indicators, the level of analysis, and cross-sectional versus longitudinal longitudinal designs. See page 392. The research question was phrased by relying on the research purpose originally stated. The research question was stated as follows: is there more empirical support in the research literature for mutual gains, that is, a positive effect of HRM on both employee well-being and organizational performance? Or is there more support for conflicting outcomes, that is, positive effect of HRM on organizational performance, but no or negative effect of HRM on employee well-being? See page 392. With regards to the theoretical conceptual framework, this was also based on mutual gains perspective that includes social exchange and AMO theory of motivation, see page 392, and conflicting outcomes perspective including labor perspective theory, see page 393. However, this article did not directly address work-life balance and retention. Instead, it addressed in general terms employee well-being within an organization and how it relates to organizational performance. Except by way of reviewing other articles such as Benthal and Wellens 2000 and Fleetwood 2007 that a possible link could be made. The authors describe flexible working arrangement as part of employee well-being through which employers can achieve reduction in turnover while improving retention and organizational performance. In terms of the methodologies used, I will begin with the author's rationale for using systematic review, which was a matter of convenience in terms of their ability to search broadly in all empirical studies available, thereby giving a representative overview of the whole body of quantitative research on HRM, employee well-being, and organizational performance. See page 402. This assertion contradicts one of the limitations of this review indicated by the authors. The authors stated that a meta-analysis in which quantitative approach was used at multi-level stages of organizational forms will yield better outcome compared to systematic review. However, the authors added that with lots of differences in measurement tools by HRM employee well-being and performance, and in the level of analysis as well as in the study designs, aggregating the results of the various studies through a meta-analysis did not seem appropriate. See page 402. In terms of set strategy and execution, the article search strategy was limited to studies published in international journals dealing with HRM organizational behavior, work and organization psychology, and applied psychology. A systematic literature search in reference international journals in the fields of management, HRM, organizational behavior, work and organizational psychology, and applied psychology was conducted. The authors completed the literature search by cross-checking the resulting list with the reference sections of 11 review studies. Refer to page 395. In terms of their inclusion or exclusion, they decided that only articles published from 1995 to May 2010 were included in the search. And according to the authors, the year 1997 was chosen as the earliest date of interest because in that year, Hazlitt published his peer-reviewed empirical milestone study about HRM and performance, Hazlitt 1995. My concern is why rely on single reference as basis for setting time frame for data search. And moreover, the authors assert that to include as many articles as possible, they decided also to include studies designed for other purposes, such as studies focusing not only on the effects of HRM on well-being and on performance. However, no explanation was given for expanding their inclusion of studies not entirely devoted research topic. And their conclusion only was centered on the studies that considered multiple employee ability that enhances HR practices, employee motivation, enhancing HR practices, and all HR practices that give employees the opportunity to perform. And to be selected, studies should also include employee well-being measures, happiness, health, and all relationships well-being, as well as operational and all financial performance measures. See page 395. The synthesis was very lengthy and can be referred to on page 2, on page 398, table 2. The systematic review process was transparent. Yes, it was transparent and it was rigorous. This led, actually, as part of this, in contemplating their rationale for the methodology, the authors proposed that the use of meta-analysis could have allowed the size of the relationships to be more accurately estimated, and that the hypothesized models could be more directly tested. See page 402. However, their use of systematic review was clearly informed by their search purpose mentioned above. Moreover, the authors were rigorous in their compliance to search strategy of inclusion, exclusion, and sometimes double inclusion of empirical studies related to the review agenda. The article mentioned that the double inclusion of these studies and the inclusion of multiple data points from a single study meant that not all the data points provide independent evidence regarding their research. Refer to page 402. And finally, the authors were transparent with regards to their heavy censorship type of evidence included in the study by relying only on quantitative studies. However, it is not clear on what basis was their decision made. In conclusion, the research papers for Demenis and Callahan was clearly stated. Their definition of FWA was also clear, which was stated as measures of organizational performance included financial measures such as profit and return on investment, productivity, labor turnover, retention, and absenteeism. The author's research method was influenced by a constructivist worldview, and their lack of focus on research agenda led to inconclusive findings. Their review provided real-world example of FWA. Their contribution is such that their research could be relied on to further studies in the future in the area of FWA. However, their research solely rely on studies mainly from the Western economies. This impacts their external validity or applicability. However, the research can be seen as a contribution to management research and practice as it sets agenda for future study. Now, with regards to Van de Voort, Pauw, and Van Volhen, their research purpose in question was clearly stated but weak because of complexity. However, the research agenda shows the direction the future management is heading. And their review provided real-world example of relationship between employee well-being, HRM systems, and organizational performance. Also, the author's research method was influenced by constructivist worldview, and their lack of focus on research agenda led to inconclusive findings. The relationship between employee well-being and turnover was not clear. However, the systematic review of 36 quantitative studies which were used which was which were con which were completed using narrative approach. They suggested that a meta-analysis that incorporates quantitative studies will have strengthened their construct validity of their findings. Although the review relied on studies conducted across industries and multi-level of business sectors, it appears that all activities were concentrated in the UK, and as a result, it is not possible to generalize the findings of this study. In conclusion, my rationale for the use of weight of evidence is that the method incorporates elements of critical and qualitative processes that serve as self-correcting mechanism during review and synthesis. According to Go 2007, Petriv 2003, Rosell et al. 2008, Razem 2015, and Taylor and Hyde 2014. And my use of WOE ensures fit for purpose, which implies that specific method adopted was based on the research question, which incorporates the elements of WOE into the benchmark for evaluating and comparing the two reviews in my ranking of articles by De Mendes and Keller over Van Diepold and Van Velhoven 2012. So in short, the article by De Mendes follows the research question that we have in mind for with regards to locus innovations. These are my references.